In this video, we'll get a feel for the fundamental syntax in Dart by looking at control flow statements like loops and conditionals. The syntax is very similar to other curly brace languages and is almost identical to JavaScript in many ways. To create a conditional statement, we can say if, followed by parentheses and a condition inside of it, like color equals blue, then add parentheses to run some code inside of it. If we want to check another condition after that, we can say else if, followed by parentheses again and the next condition. And then finally, we can finish it off with else, which will be the default if none of the other conditions are true. It's also worth noting that for simple conditionals, you can omit the curly braces and put everything on a single line. Now, when it comes to conditionals in Dart, there's one thing I want to mention for any of the JavaScript developers out there. In JavaScript, you might check that a string is empty by simply passing in a string that is empty to the condition. That works fine in JavaScript, but in Dart, you'll need to actually check that it's empty by calling the toEmpty method, which will return a boolean of true or false. Another example in JavaScript is that when you pass null or undefined to a conditional, it defaults to falsy. If you need to check that a value is null, you'll need to explicitly check that the value does not equal null. So basically, when running conditions, you need to have an actual true or false value inside the parentheses, and Dart will always warn you when that's not the case. Now let's go ahead and switch gears over to loops. You can run a basic for loop like you would in any other programming language, and it also supports break, which would prematurely end the loop, or continue, which would skip this iteration of the loop and go to the next one. I'm not going to talk much more about a for loop because we're going to look more at that when we get to the list section. More often than not, you're working with a list when you're iterating over something, but I mostly just want to show you that for loops are possible. We also have while loops and do while loops, which will continue to loop while a certain condition is true. Then the final thing I want to show you with control flow is assert. Basically, it's a function that takes a condition as an argument, and if that condition is true, then nothing happens, but if it's false, it will raise an error. However, it only raises that error during debugging. In production mode, the error will be ignored. So basically, it's a way to validate the shape of your data before you start operating on it further in your code.